Holy crap, will I ever get one of these out on time? Okay, so lately there's been some stuff going on with me. One of the things was a shoulder injury, keeping me from any kind of drawing. So that kind of put a damper on things. But I'm back now, and I'm planning on having more content out this year than I've ever had before, ever. So here's hoping I avoid any more bodily harm. Right, so on to Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls has become kind of a big deal. You can tell because there's a healthy number of imitators popping up, and it's not hard to see why some might try to nick the formula. Personally, I've never had a problem with others being inspired by someone else's good idea, but many people know that truly creative people don't have to have things like inspiration and idols to aspire to. By the inherent properties of popularity, as Dark Souls becomes more popular, so too increases the number of assholes surrounding it, which has birthed this collection of, well, I guess technically they're people, that just shit all over anyone who's not already on board that Dark Souls is allowed to have full access to our anus bandwagon. And good luck trying to ask these people for help with the game, get good scrub being the mantra of many a Dark Souls fan. My point is, it's hard to recommend for someone to try a game when being new at it makes you a target for hate within its own community. Sadly, this is becoming true of many games. That being said, I totally recommend every game in the Souls series. Besides, there are also plenty of awesome members in the Dark Souls community. Personally, now that I've beaten Dark Souls 2 and lifted my self-imposed media embargo of the game, one of my favorite ways to play is having some epic name bro or one of the other extremely cool Dark Souls YouTubers playing in the background, helping me find all the stuff I've missed. While the Souls series has become known for its difficulty, I've always felt that a lot of what people call difficulty in the Souls series was actually just punishing. As an example, a boss that you can't get past is, of course, difficult, but a trap you can't see coming, or the mechanic of losing all your souls on death is just punishing. Both are important for a challenging game, though. Mistakes must be punished in order for the difficulty to have any weight, and it gives the game the careful and deliberate pace to the action that I love about the series. There are few games where button mashing will fail as hard as it does in Dark Souls. It often feels like the designers are purposely out to get you, like they test a level and see that everyone rolls to a certain safe spot and say, okay, let's put a trap there. Or, let's add an archer that has a great shot to that location. Because of this, the Souls series to me has always felt like the games themselves hate me, and I don't mean that to be a bad thing. After all, if I'm going to beat something, I might as well have a grudge and something to prove. There is a reason why the game's harsh nature has made it into a successful series. Part of it is that it adds to the game's overall tone of desperation and helplessness, which is pretty rad, and the other part is it feels so rewarding to progress. Every bonfire reached is a sigh of relief and accomplishment, knowing that you've bested the game, but you still need to be ready for the next pile of shit it's going to launch at you. In my review of the original Dark Souls, I equated the game to being in an abusive relationship. And that's still pretty true here, except that instead of a relationship, it's more like being in an abusive gangbang as every motherfucker and his dog in a 10-mile radius wants to have a go at your rotting undead ass. There are far more instances where pulling out one enemy at a time is just not possible, but not enough has changed from the first game to give you the tools you need to handle large groups reliably. Certain weapons and spells make it possible, but if your build doesn't include those, you might as well start lubing up your weapon handle because you know where it's about to go. The key to tough but fair difficulty is ensuring that the player always has counterplay, and if the player dies, it's because they've failed their counterplay. But there is no counterplay to being stun-locked from 100% to 0 life by multiple enemies. And since enemies come at you like your nipples dispense Estus, your options are usually to run or to cheese the enemy, neither of which feel rewarding to the player and hurt the overall depth of the game. Encounters like this did happen in the original Dark Souls, but they seem far more common here. This does, however, encourage more co-op play, which I don't personally mind, but I know some people have a problem with relying on others. I mean, if they had to rely on co-op, how can they go on the forums and be condescending to new players? That's simply unacceptable. But I do like the fact that some areas punish certain builds while rewarding others. That's what having a build is and should be. You excel in some areas while struggling in others. Overcoming your own shortcomings is its own reward, but having a large weapon with a sweeping moveset seems almost mandatory at times. One concept I really enjoyed in this one was the ability to play through memories. For a game like Dark Souls, where the character tends to show up after a whole lot of shit already went down, this is an awesome idea that I would love to see more of. The first time it came up is when a lot of the world really clicked for me and I was totally into it. Dark Souls 2 brought a lot of changes that I really enjoyed. Dual wielding is tons of fun now. The way death and healing is handled is a wet dream to hoarders like me. More weapon and ring slots bring a lot of fun and flexibility to builds. Upgrading equipment is much more user-friendly, and having duplicate rings with different power levels is a great way to give us access to weaker versions of very useful rings early on in the game. Level designs are still fun, but a lot of the boss designs are kinda meh. There are definitely some new ideas that didn't pan out too well also. Soul Memory is a bit of a one-step forward, two-step back kind of situation. Some covenants could really use some tweaking, and people still can't agree on whether or not agility is worth a damn. Ultimately, Dark Souls 2 is a great game, but it just doesn't have the same impact of the first. The original Dark Souls is a game that feels like it exists because someone had a passion to bring it into existence. And Dark Souls 2 feels like it exists because Dark Souls 1 did well. Dark Souls 2 checks all the right boxes, but checking boxes is not creativity, and seems to have lost some of the soul of the original. But having said all that, I still feel like I'll end up putting even more time into this one than the original. It's just damn fun to play.